Hey, and welcome to the Go the Distance podcast series. My name is Sadie, and you can find my social media links at milehighradio.com/go-the-distance. Thank you to Lynn Burnett and Mile High Radio for making all of this possible. Please check out my previous episodes on shows.pippa.io/go-the-distance. And today's episode is about being healthy, and I will talk about my journey to health. So life is a journey full of lessons and learning, and I believe that if you're not learning in life, you aren't truly living. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I always challenge myself to be learning something new. In 2012, I took on a new challenge to get my body in shape and to a healthy place. This journey was about exercise at first, but I learned that it also had to do with food too. In 2012, I had a New Year's resolution to get into shape and to get my weight under control and to get some muscles and definition in my body. And with a lot of hard work at the gym, I still wasn't seeing the results that I wanted. So that's when I figured out that it had to be my diet as well. I started in January and I hired myself a personal trainer because my gym membership was free. So the gym that I was at had personal trainers available, and she set up a program for me to work out my body. I was going to the gym 3 to 4 days a week, and I was also walking or biking to get there. And I worked out a different part of my body every day. So one day I would do abs and cardio, and another day I would do chest and triceps, and I would do back and biceps, and I'd have a leg day as well. And so I followed her routine that she created for me. And as I was going to the gym, I had apps on my phone to get different exercises to keep things interesting and keep myself challenged. And I was always upping the weights that I was lifting and trying to push my muscles further and further. And I was feeling so much energy and so much, such a change in my outlook on life. I was a full-time student, and I was also working part-time at a before and after school program, and I was filling in the daycare when they needed me as well. And so I had a lot on my plate, and I thought, maybe going to the gym would be really tiring, but it actually energized me a lot, and I felt a lot more active, and I felt like I would wake up in the morning feeling ready to go, as opposed to, hitting that snooze button countless amounts of times in the morning and feeling drained and tired and not really wanting to get up. And it had a really big impact on my mental health. I think a big part of it is because when you get up and you go to the gym, well, I'd go in the afternoon, so it wasn't really like getting up and going. But when you go to the gym and you set a goal for yourself, it's just a tiny little goal. Each week, my goal was to do the workout that I had set out for myself. And when I was able to complete that at the end of the day, it felt really good because I had achieved something that I set out to do. And then when that became easy, that's when I would add more weight to add more resistance or make it a little bit more challenging in a different way. And those little tiny goals, they just kept me going and kept me positive and kept me thinking about how I can do it and I can set my mind to this and I can make a difference for myself. And I had gone to the gym in high school, and I tried, but I felt really judged by other people who were there. And this time when I went to the gym, I chose to let go of that judgment, because some people, people just look at other people at the gym. And when I first went to the gym in high school, I felt like, oh, people are looking at me. They think I suck, or they don't, whatever I was telling myself at the time. And And I decided to just let that go and just to allow myself to be there and just be myself and not allow myself to worry about what other people thought about me. Because if I did that, then my goal would be ended. I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have the motivation or the strength to push myself to keep going and to keep doing it, because the pressure of the judgment of other people, if you allow it, it can take over your mind, and it can take over your whole thought process, and it starts to steer you into a place of negativity and self-doubt. And I found just letting go of that and realizing, like, yeah, there's this guy who's like super ripped and like can do all this weightlifting with no problem whatsoever. And if he looks at me, he's probably thinking, oh man, that girl's like, she's struggling with such a small weight, say. Like, well, by choosing not to allow those thoughts to affect me, I was able to see, like, people aren't really necessarily judging. Like, people look at you and maybe they're just observing, or maybe they are judging you, and who cares? And actually, I found myself at the time when I was going to the gym, and this was back in university, it sort of pushed me to be more social as well, because sometimes someone's using a machine that you want to use, and if you let them know, like, hey, when you're finished, I'm going to use that or whatever, you start having these little conversations and these little social interactions. And at that time, I was kind of introverted and shut down and keeping to myself. I mean, I had friends at school and stuff like that, but I just found that, like, it encouraged me to meet new people and to put myself out there and not just like be this quiet little person that never says anything. And so I found a lot of strength mentally from working at my body physically, which wasn't really something that I had expected. And I found the more I did it, the more I loved it, and the more I wanted to go. And I kind of went into it thinking, like, oh, I hope I don't have this like attitude of, oh, I hate the gym, I don't want to go work out, oh, I'm too tired, I don't feel like it. Well, once you get there and you accomplish those goals and you get that sense of satisfaction, it becomes enjoyable, and it becomes something that you want to do, and something that it's not a burden, it's something that you actually enjoy. And I think for me, that was the first time that I realized, like, okay, so being positive and having a good outlook really is important, and it's not as hard as you think it is. I mean, it's hard, but once you just change your mindset and you keep your thoughts moving in that direction, it becomes easier and easier as time goes on. So anyways, I'd been going to the gym for about 8 months. It was the end of August or partway through August, and I wasn't seeing the results that I wanted still with my body. I had actually gained 5 pounds, and I know I'd lost some fat because I was taking my BMI and my fat percent. But I still was like physically mostly the same size as I was before. And I was feeling a little bit discouraged at that point, because I thought I'd have seen the results that I wanted by then. And I started to think about my diet and the things that I'm putting into my body. And those things were a big hurdle to get me to where I am now. And I used to be almost 200 pounds. My max weight was 196 pounds. And as soon as I changed my diet, the weight just came right off. It was like, bam, losing weight right away. So the first thing that I did is I cut out gluten from my diet. At first I replaced gluten with gluten-free options, like gluten-free breads and gluten-free pastas, and I still kind of had the same sort of diet with a little bit carb heavy. And after a while, after I'd sort of adjusted my diet that way, I actually stopped eating so many carbs, and I started eating a lot of protein and a lot of vegetables, and it I started to feel a lot better after making that change. My digestion changed. I was finally feeling regular, and um, my my brain felt clearer. I could think better. I could remember things more. And then I was like, well, I am starting to feel better. And I know that gluten takes 2 months to get out of your system. So after a couple months, I was starting to lose weight and really noticing I was feeling better. But there was still something that was not quite right. I was still holding on to some weight. So I took out dairy from my diet as well. And that really changed my digestion. My digestion became much, much better after I took that out. And I lost another 10 pounds after that. So that was a really big relief for me. I was like, okay, wow, this is working. This change in my diet is really having a positive effect. So anyways, a few months go by and I'm still getting migraines and still holding on to quite a bit of weight that I wanted to get rid of. And it had been over a year at this point of working out. And I was coming down in my weight, but I still wasn't down to where I wanted to be. And so I had to really research and take a critical thinking look at all of the information I was finding, because sometimes you can find information that's biased, and it's important to see through those biases and to see multiple perspectives about a topic, because some people will say that like gluten, dairy, and my other one that I cut out eventually, I'll tell you about in a minute, is corn. Some people will tell you, oh, those things are good for you, and gluten-free and all that stuff isn't as healthy as it seems. But that's one perspective, because everybody's body is different and you have to really listen to your own body. And so I started to with my migraines and stuff, I started to track my food intake. I also tracked my digestion, and I was really able to see the timing of things. So if I ate dairy, it would be like 20 minutes later I'd have an upset stomach. And I'll tell you about the corn after, but yeah, it just like tracking those things and keeping track of everything I was putting into my body and when I was working out and how much I was working out and what exercises I was doing. It became really apparent how influential all of these factors are into your health. And sometimes, like, for myself, I was taking life for granted, basically. I just thought, I can put whatever I want into my body. I don't need to exercise. And it was catching up with me, and I was gaining weight quickly. And I always told myself I'm never going to let myself get that overweight because I want to stay healthy. And I was getting to the point where I knew that I needed to make a change. And I read a fact when I was reading about the body that before you turn 25, is the best time to lose weight, because once you turn 25, your cells in your body start to become more solidified and they become adult cells. And it makes it a lot more difficult to make changes. It's not impossible by any means, but it's more difficult. So I made those changes before I turned 25, and that had a huge impact on me, because I was like, this is my goal. I want to be losing weight by the time I want to have lost all this weight by the time I'm 25. So that was a huge motivation for me to just really make sure that I made it easier for myself instead of letting it go until I was older, and then it would be more difficult for me. So with the tracking of my food, I was noticing after eating corn products, which there's a variety of different names for it. There's things like glucose, fructose, dextrin, maltodextrin, dextrose. sodium erytholate, and there's all these different things that have corn in it that you'd never realize. Mass-produced honey is primarily corn syrup. If you get baking powder, it's a mix of baking soda and cornstarch. And if you look at the label of peanut butter, the second ingredient is icing sugar. So an icing sugar is corn and sugar mixed together. And so I really realized like how much food has become so highly processed. And it was really eye-opening for me. And that's when I started to eat a lot healthier. I cut out basically all processed food. The most processed foods I eat are granola bars and like I eat hot sauce. So I guess that's a bit processed. But for the most part, I just eat like fresh vegetables, fresh meats, and I don't even have carbs or starches very often. Well, that's not true. I do love mac and cheese and pizza. And there's gluten-free, dairy-free, corn-free options. So that's good. But when I cut out corn from my diet is when I dropped 40 pounds in a month. And I was just like, wow, I feel like 110%. I've never felt this good in my life. I've never had that much energy, this much energy. And I couldn't believe how impactful corn was on my body. On top of feeling better, I stopped having migraines. And that's when I realized that corn is actually in all of the pain relief medications that you can get. And it's used as a binding agent. And I was wondering, like, why am I getting a worse headache when I take a pill for my headaches and it's supposed to take it away and it's getting worse? And I did this got me thinking, like, what else is corn in? So I recalled being a child and being told about how I had colic. So I started to ask my mom. I knew I was formula fed, and I asked her, what kind of formula was I fed, and what was my feeding like when I was a baby? Because I noticed that every time I ate corn, I was getting these migraines. So I can just picture myself as a little baby being fed corn syrup, because the first ingredient in some formulas is corn syrup, or second ingredient to water, I guess, is the first one. And my mom said I would push the bottle out of my mouth and I would just scream and cry. And then after about 2 or 3 weeks, I finally settled and started taking the bottle. And so I guess I built up a tolerance to having that in my system. And even now, if I eat something or drink something that has corn in it, I get a really bad migraine, and I can't eat, I can't drink, I can't keep water down. If I drink a glass of water, about like 10 or 5 minutes later, I go puke it back up. And it's really apparent to me that probably my whole life I've been struggling with this food allergy, and I never knew because it started when I was a baby. And it, how would I have known? And by just being persistent and being committed to my health, I figured it out. And I don't have like a diagnosis. I haven't gone to a doctor and been told, yes, you're allergic to corn. But I know my body and I know myself, and I know that those things affect me in a negative way. So by really just like tuning into my body and being aware of myself and my feelings and my health, I've learned so much about myself and so much about being healthy. And so I kept going to the gym for another couple year, I guess a year and a half after that. And I just I became really in shape. I had defined muscles. I was able to lift much higher weights than when I started. and I just felt like on top of the world, basically. I noticed was a change in my cardio. I'd always kind of struggled with running or being active with breathing, and after going to the gym and continuing there, I was able to sustain for longer. And another thing was my flexibility. When I was in public school, we would do our stretches and stuff, and I couldn't touch my toes. And I remember this one gym teacher, she was so frustrated with me because I couldn't touch my toes. She actually pushed down on my back and she was like, "You need to touch your toes. Like, you're not trying hard enough." And I was like, "No, that like hurts. Don't do that." But anyways, at the gym, I was finally able to touch my toes for the first time. I remember being on the gym floor like, "Oh my gosh, I just reached my toes. This is crazy. I have never done that in my whole life." And that was a big moment for me. And to this day, I can still touch my toes. If I don't stretch and stuff, then it's like a bit tight. I do have to bend my knees a little bit now that I'm not working out consistently, but I realize how much practice and consistency has an impact on our health. And so with being physically healthy and a lot more mentally healthy, I was able to see that when we just buy into everything that we're told through media and advertising, it's easy to get stuck in this cycle of unhealthiness. And when you take a moment to be aware of your own body and your own self, it really does make a difference. And for anyone who's setting out on maybe a similar goal as I did, I just want to encourage you to keep going and keep trying and listen to your body and don't give up, because you never know what it will be that gives you that little push that you need to get over the hill, and then you're just smooth sailing from there. So if you ever feel discouraged, just remind yourself, no matter what, you can do it. You can figure it out. And if it seems difficult or it seems hard, then just keep pushing through and keep trying, because you're worth it and you can do it. And it might be hard and it might be difficult, but no matter what, it'll be worth it in the end. You'll feel so much better and so much healthier. And people around you will start to notice too, because when I was working out, people were saying like, "Oh my goodness, you're like," once I started losing the weight, they're like, "Oh my goodness, wow, like good for you." And those moments were really encouraging, because when you first start going to the gym, you lose like 1 or 2 pounds and nobody really notices, because what's 1 or 2 pounds really? But then when you start losing like 10, 15, 20 pounds, people start to see it, and they see that your hard work and your commitment is starting to pay off. And if you know someone who's working out and trying to get in shape, offer them encouragement and praise them and give them those kind words, because it really does make a difference, and it really does have an influence on how successful you are. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who helped me stay motivated and stay focused on my goals, because without those people in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. And it's been a long journey, and I struggle with keeping myself exercising right now, but I am working at it, and it's a lifelong battle to keep yourself in shape, because life's busy and it's so easy to just, stop at a fast food restaurant and get whatever to eat, or grab a quick frozen meal because it's fast. But when you take the time to prepare healthy foods for yourself, it's really impactful. If you think of your body as a car, if you go to the gas station and you get bad gas, your car doesn't run properly. You don't get good gas mileage. If you go and you get a nice, good, clean tank of gas, your car runs like a dream, and your body's the same. If you put in healthy foods, you'll go a lot further. If you put in junk foods, then you're going to get junk mileage. And it's so important to make sure that you take care of your body, because I believe that we're all souls, and you only get one chance in the body that you have. And if you don't value that and treat your body like a temple, then it's not going to be the best life it can be for yourself. And so that's my motivation to keep healthy and to keep going, because I want to live long and I want to be able to accomplish everything I've ever wanted to do. And I have a lot of goals, so I got to be in top shape so I can make sure I get all those goals accomplished, because you only live once and you got to go the distance, because life doesn't stand still, yo. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next episode. Oh, I wanted to ask a question and get your participation. So my question for you today is, what is your New Year's resolution, and are you still sticking to it since it is into the end of January now? And does anyone have a weight loss story that they would like to talk about or share? If you do, you can check out my group on Facebook. It's www.facebook.com/groups/Go the Distance podcast series, or you can find that link on my Mile High Radio page, which is www.milehighradio.com/go-the-distance. Take care.